welcome back to another video right here on Free Will Photos. Today we're going to be looking at ON1 Mobile because my desktop computer is not cooperating with me, and that's perfectly fine. We're going to keep on diving in, edit some photos, or at least look at ON1 Mobile. I may edit photos in later videos, but today we're going to do a brief overview, and we're going to see if ON1 Mobile is right for you. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up ON1 Mobile. As you can see, we get the interface. So that's going to be the first thing that I cover. Now, by the way, if you find any value in this content, hit the like button. And if you're new here, consider subscribing. Now, I opened it up and it brought me to my albums. Not a problem there, but from top to bottom, I'm going to actually hit on photos because that gives us an extra option here. So on the left-hand side, I have what I just selected, which is my local photos. These are the photos that are stored on my iPad locally on the SSD or whatever, the hard drive space on the iPad. Now, moving down, the next one is the ON1 Plus or the ON1 360 option. What that is going to give you access to all of your photos and your devices that are connected to your ON1 Plus account. You can access photos. We'll take a look at that here in a second. The next thing down is albums. Now, we're all familiar with albums, and you can work with albums two ways with ON1 Mobile. The first way is locally to the iPad or whatever device that you're working. You can build albums and not have them synced anywhere else. And then the other way is syncing them from your computer into your actual ON1 Mobile 360 or Photo Plus, whatever they're calling it. I don't know what they're calling it, but let me know in the comment section below if you know what they're calling it. And then the last thing, I had to go back to photos, by the way. The last thing on the left-hand side here that I want to cover, besides the camera, which is at the bottom, is you have the ability to import photos. So when I tap on that, it brings me to the screen that says import to ON1 Photo Raw. I'm not going to insult anyone's intelligence. If you are familiar with importing photos into any other app, then this works very, very easy and straightforward. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit cancel because I don't think that we need a demonstration on how to do that. Now, at the top, over on the far right-hand side, we have four different options here. All right, the first one is the search option. This is where you can type in the title of an image. I'm not sure if it works for keywords. Let me see. No, it does not work for keywords. But this is also only searching in my local photos. If I go back to my albums, maybe that'll work. But what you can see here is you can sort by your heart rating, your star rating, whatever it is. But I don't need that, so I'm just going to go ahead and close it off. The next thing here is the ON1 Plus status. This really just shows you that all of your stuff is up to date. You're connected to ON1 Plus if that's what you're using or whatever we're calling it. We're going to call it the cloud service, ON1 cloud service. All right. And then the storage capacity. Right now, as you can see, I only have about 4 gigs of storage that I'm actually using out of the 1 terabyte that I paid for back when I did the original video on this. You can check that out in the description box and in the cards above. The next thing here is select. Now, this just gives you the option to select multiple photos. As I tap on the screen here, you'll see different photos getting selected. And then I have access to a multi-option or like multi-function thing. So if I wanted to export all of these, I hit the little arrow going up. That's the first one. And you get your export or your share module. And that's all self-explanatory. If you've ever shared a photo on a mobile device, very, very easy to use. The next thing is I can add them to an album. Now, I don't want to add these to an album, but if I wanted to, I would hit that plus, and then I can either create a new album or I can tap on the albums that already exist. And then the last thing is delete, but I'm just going to hit cancel because deleting is obviously going to delete. And the very last option here, which some people may overlook, is the menu. Now, you have access to import again. You have access to selecting all of your images, and then you also have access to unpublish from cloud sync. So if you realize like, hey, I don't want certain photos synced to the cloud because they're sensitive in nature, whatever, then this is where you can go ahead and unpublish the photos that are on your mobile device, be it an iPad, a cell phone, iPhone, Android tablet, whatever. All right. Now, one of the cool things is the general settings. The My Account, pretty straightforward. I'm not going to open that up. It doesn't really matter. The About ON1 Photo Raw Mobile. If you are like me, you like to know what the developers want you to know about the software. I spend a lot of time in abouts and manuals and stuff like that, just so I can make sure that I understand what it is that I'm supposed to be doing with this software. All right, that's really cool. Improve ON1 Photo Raw 2021. This is simply a little check block. Because I want to see ON1 continue to improve, I leave that on. I will recommend that you leave it on if you want to see ON1 Mobile improve. If not, turn it off. It's perfectly fine. It's up to you. The help and support, this leads you to a desktop, or not a desktop, a application here on the application. It takes you into Safari or whatever your web browser is, and there's a lot of FAQs on here. There's the video library. You have access to all kinds of stuff. It's really cool. I do use that a lot as well. And then if you have to, you can hit share log, and this will give you the option to share whatever issues you may be having with ON1 Mobile. So that's the interface in a nutshell, with the exception of, let's tap on an image here. Here's a photo of my daughter coming out of a slide. And from on the top side of the screen, or the top bar, we have the back button, which is easy to understand. We have the information button. Now, I'll be honest, I was not a fan of the information button in earlier releases of ON1 Mobile. However, when you tap the information button now, it actually gives information that's helpful if you are working on a mobile device and you just want to be able to know what were my camera settings. That wasn't a thing before. When you hit information before, all you got was the name of the image. Now you can actually see some good metadata to help you make decisions on if that's a photo you want to edit or not. I use it for that quite often. Then we have the export button, or the share button again. Not going to tap that. We have the edit button. I'm going to come back to that because I'm going to walk you through the edit module. You have delete if you want to delete. And then here's a really cool one, is the histogram. Now, it's a very tiny histogram, but it gives a good idea of where your tones sit in the blacks, shadows, midtones, highlights, and whites. And then it shows you a little bit of where your RGBs sit in representation of each one of those tonal values. But for me, it's a little small. I'd like to see it a little bit larger. I think it works. You can absolutely tell what's going on. But I would like to see that just a little bit larger. That's nitpicking because that wasn't there a while ago. So I'm thankful that they actually included that. All right. And then the last thing that was on the left-hand side here is the camera. And I'm gonna open it up. It brings you to a desk. As you can see, there's my hand. I will do a completely different video for the camera. Coming back into the photos here. Now, I have some test photos that I want to go through. The very first one is, I'll go ahead and tap on this one. And we'll go into the edit module. Now, when you get into the edit module, in the top left-hand corner, you have some navigation icons or options. That's pretty standard, self-explanatory. And then on the right-hand side, you have your histogram and your export or your share. Where the edit module really shines is the tools on the right-hand side. And I will give ON1 credit. They have added in more tools, with one of those being the local adjustments tool. There's some more to be desired after. I'm going to just give you that disclaimer up front. but I am actually pretty good with what they've offered so far, and I would like to see a few more features. We'll talk about that later on in the video. I'm not going to go over each and every one of these particular items on the edit module, but what we have is some very standard stuff. The little sunshine or sun, that's your exposure. Then you have your color temperature with the two little circles. That's just to get your colors balanced. That's also where your vibrance, highlight, shadow maintainers are. You also have the AI auto. By tapping it, it instantly activates it. You can turn it on and off by hitting this little blue icon, and then you can change the strength of the AI auto by dragging left and right on the actual AI auto feature. The next thing that we have down here is details. I'm not going to go over all that. That's basic. I will say the noise reduction in this photo doesn't have any noise. The noise reduction in ON1 Mobile works pretty good, and I don't know if it's because they're expecting people to take photos with their camera phones, which captures a good amount of noise since the sensor's so small, but it works a lot better than the noise reduction that is in the develop module in the desktop. The next thing is presets. Now, this is also a fairly new feature, or it wasn't in my original review, where you will go through and there's some pretty good presets in here. Now, with that being said, there's some presets and you can edit these by, you can adjust the strength. You can edit them as well, and I'll show you that here in a second. But we'll go with that one. But for a while, we had no way of getting to any presets in ON1 Mobile. Now we have access to presets, which is pretty cool, if you ask me. Now, moving down into the effects. As you can see, the preset applied 3 effects. These presets are specifically designed for ON1 Mobile. You cannot save your own presets. I would like to see that come in the near future, but we'll see. And I think it will come eventually. But the reason why I think you can't save your own presets, or at least for now, is because you're only limited to 9 of the actual effects that ON1 offers. Because you're limited to 9, you're not going to be able to get some of those really good effects that we're used to using inside of the desktop version. With that being said, some of these are also specific for the mobile device, rightfully so, I get it, but these are also pretty powerful and they maintain their counterpart from the desktop's capabilities in most regards, all right? Now, as you can see, this one has a curves on it and looks like it affects the blue channel. You can change your tonal curves and your RGB curve, and that opacity is also lowered. I can turn on and off the curve. So you have individual edits inside of the effects module. And if I wanted to, I can mask this in by tapping on the mask. And this is where I think the mask and the local adjustments get a little clunky. Is right now I am on the zoom feature. You can tell that by looking at the magnifying glass and the hand in the upper left hand corner. I can zoom in, zoom out by pinching with my 2 fingers, like you would normally do on a mobile device. If I wanted to start painting, as you can see, I would have to tap on the masking icon, and this gives you 3 options: the perfect brush, the normal masking brush, and the masking bug. All of which I think most people are going to be familiar with. And if you're not familiar with these, the perfect brush is a very selective edit brush where it only highlights or selects colors that are similar to whatever the center of the brush is over. And then the bottom one, which is the masking bug, is like a gradient tool. If you're familiar with Lightroom, the gradient tool is the masking bug. Or masking bug is a gradient tool. So I'm just going to select the normal brush and I get a few more options here available to me, which I'm currently on paint out because this is going to be all over. The mask itself is already covering the entire image. So if I wanted to paint it out, I would just paint out, and now you can see that, and I don't know if that's a very, you can't really tell. There we go. Now you can tell that I did paint it out. You can undo edits with the the back, or the button that looks like an undo arrow. It's in the upper left hand corner. It's the middle button out of the three. I'll highlight it on the screen so that way you can see. But you can undo edits if you feel like you did something that you wanted to undo. This comes in handy when you're painting in mask and you don't necessarily want to delete the mask or erase. You can just hit the undo, try again. All right. And the next thing here is local adjustments. I'm not going to go into great detail on masking with the effects. I'll do another video for that. The next one here is local adjustments. And as you can see inside of this local adjustment, it looks like there is already something painted in. Not sure what that is, but it's not doing anything. So whatever, I'm just going to delete it because it wasn't doing anything. But local adjustments works the exact same as the masking as far as the options go with painting in the adjustment, and you get access to a lot of the standard developed tools that you would see inside of the exposure module here. But now you can be very localized with how you want to paint that in. So if I wanted to add a little bit of exposure and open up the shadows on her face, I can do that. I'm painting with my finger right now. I could get the Apple Pencil, but I'm just going to paint this over her face just like so. Not a very good selection overall. And as you can see, I have increased exposure on her face. That is not what I would normally do, but maybe I would bring the opacity down just so that way it brightens up her face. It gives her like a face light, similar to what we would see in the Portrait AI module on the desktop. If you have to do that on mobile with an app, there you go. It can work. That is a more subtle edit, and I think it works out pretty good. I could probably even come down on the exposure just a little bit more, just so that way it's not as obvious that I painted that in. Then the last thing here is the healing brush. Now, the healing brush has two different options. You have the actual healing brush, which I don't know if there's anything that I want to. Let's see if we get rid of one of her buttons. All right, we'll try and get rid of this button in the middle there. So I'm gonna hit the healing brush. I'm gonna paint over it. And as you can see, it gives you the two selection icons. The red is what's being affected. The green is what it's going to try and replace it with. So I'm going to try and replace it with this. Now that's not working for me. So what I'm going to do is actually make the brush a little bit smaller. You do that by tapping on the solid line circle with a little dot in the center. And then I'm going to drag this down to close to the size of the button. I'm just going to tap over the button. Nope, that didn't work either. Let me get my Apple Pencil. My finger is failing me right now. We'll just go around there. And now I'm going to try and drag this right into there. And I think that worked out pretty good. Let's go ahead and close that and we'll zoom out. And there you go. A button is gone. You can do this in mobile if you absolutely had to. All right. If you try to edit a photo that has an effect on it that is not supported with the app, you will be greeted with this dialog. All right. This photo has settings applied with ON1 Photo RAW for computers that are not supported on mobile. And then it's going to give you an option to create a file local to your mobile device so you can edit. It's going to have all of the edits that came from the computer baked into the file. You're not going to be able to re-edit those effects. So you have to like what the effect looks like on the computer when it comes over to the iPad or to your mobile device, so that way you can start to make the edits on it. The downside to this is once you make edits on this version and you try to sync it back to your computer, you're not going to have access to the full range of effects that you would like to, or that you would expect to be able to. So just note that that does hinder some people's capabilities. Not everyone is going to be hindered by this, but just wanted to make sure you're aware of that. Now, the last thing that I want to show here is the cloud sync option. Now, this is probably where ON1 is sort of breaking ground with allowing you access to a hard drive that is on your computer. This is really cool. It's different than the Adobe Creative Cloud, where you have to upload the images to the cloud. If you want to compare apples to apples here, the albums where you are uploading the images and they're storing to the cloud service that's here, that is where that's similar to the Adobe Lightroom model or the Adobe Creative Cloud model. For ON1, what they give you access to is other devices. So I have photos on my iPhone. As you can see, all of these images are on my iPhone. I took them with my iPhone. They're living on my phone, but I have access to them through my iPad. And that's just because all of my devices are synced. You can sync up to 5 devices. And the same thing, I have a Galaxy phone that I have ON1 installed on, and I can sync to that as well. Where I run into problems, and I may be the only one, let me know in the comment section below if you run into this issue, is with the desktop. As you can see, I can access my file structure that you've seen before on my desktop. But when I tap on or go to look at images, I get this. This folder is empty. Now, I clearly know that my folder with birds has birds in it, and it even can tell that there's stuff inside of the folder, but for some reason it's saying that it's set to 0. I read some forums, I read the blog on ON1, and I've tried troubleshooting a little bit, still not getting the full, I guess that's not working for me as well. But nonetheless, you have the option to do it. And when this gets solidified and it becomes a more reliable solution, I think we're going to see a different style of just being able to edit photos on the go. If I can access my hard drive and edit the images while I'm on the go doing, just like basic exposure and things of that sort, or even if it's just masking, the need for a Wacom tablet may go away if you have an iPad. There's some really cool things, or just a tablet with a stylus. There's some really cool things that I think we're going to be able to do here in the near future when it comes to ON1 Photo RAW. Which brings me to my final thoughts on the ON1 mobile app. The first one is, who is this app even for? Well, I think this app is for the person who's looking for a mobile application that is not Lightroom, but has similar capabilities and functionality. That's who I think this is for. I think that professional photographers, it's not about the gear. It's about your capability of using said gear that you're given. I think that many professional photographers will find a way to include this into their workflow if they absolutely had to. But it's not going to be as transparent and as intuitive as Lightroom is at the current moment. Now, I know that ON1 is going to continue building and making this software better. Like I said, it's much better than the original review that I did of ON1 Mobile. I want to say it was back in June. Again, cards and show notes. So that's who I think it's for. The photographer that likes to do mobile editing and is looking for something that's not Lightroom. Is this application any good? Now, I have a fairly unbiased opinion because I don't necessarily use this application, but I also am encouraged to see that ON1 is developing something and kind of pushing the envelope. So is it any good? Absolutely. I think it's good. Is it great? No. It's not great because there are certain workflow things like creating presets that allow you to tap something, edit on the go, edit ready, but that doesn't mean you can't use this app and get really good results. In fact, you can get phenomenal results with this app. So I highly recommend that if this is something you're interested in, that you give it a try. Test it out in your workflow. See if you can edit the way that you want to edit with the software, because I think that it can work. It just doesn't work the greatest for me personally, not yet at least. So where is this app headed? I think it's going to be similar to Lightroom at some point, and then it's going to surpass Lightroom. Adobe has gotten really comfortable with their success, and they don't push the envelope as much as photographers and hobbyists and enthusiasts would prefer them to. I think they've gotten comfortable sitting at the top, and there's a lot of companies that are saying, you know what, I can do something so much better and meet the market's needs a lot better than Adobe can, and at a much better price point. Money is always going to drive decisions regardless of how much you have. It's going to drive decisions. And I think ON1, as well as some of the other companies, they're just really trying to attack the financial perspective of mobile photography. So there you have it. ON1 Mobile, the updated review. Hopefully this was helpful. If it was, smash the like button. Now, I have a live stream set up for May 22nd. I'm going to be going over blending options, talking about how you can use them in a creative way using ON1 2021.5. Now, the good news is I bought a brand new computer. The bad news is the computer hasn't gotten here yet. I just bought it yesterday. So I am excited that I'm going to get this new computer and hopefully have it in time for the live stream. But if not, I'm going to continue on and, we'll work with the live stream as it goes out on the other computer. I also have a PC laptop that I may be able to live stream from. So definitely going to do the live stream on the 22nd at noon Eastern Standard Time. So, please do the conversion for your location. But today, or this month's live stream, is going to be on blending options and using them in a creative way. So until next time, I want you guys to stay inspired and keep creating.